Right now, over 1 billion people on this planet smoke every single day. They know it's bad. The warnings are literally printed on the box. Doctors have been screaming about it for decades, and still, they light up. But here's what nobody tells you. This isn't a modern problem. This isn't something tobacco companies created. This isn't even something that started a few hundred years ago. Humans have been smoking for at least 12,300 years. Read that again. 12,300 years ago, before agriculture, before cities, before writing, a group of hunter-gatherers sat around a fire in what is now Utah. And buried in the ash of that fire, scientists found 4 tiny seeds. Tobacco seeds. Charred, burned, used. And in that moment, everything we thought we knew about this habit changed. Because humans didn't start smoking because of stress, or boredom, or cigarette ads. They started because they found a plant that made them feel something. And once they felt it, they never stopped. Let's go back. It's 12,300 years ago. The last ice age is ending. What is now a dry, dead desert in Utah was a massive marshland. Water everywhere, birds everywhere. A small group of hunter-gatherers makes camp near the water. They hunt ducks. They cook by fire. They sleep under open sky. And at some point, someone picks up a wild tobacco plant. Now, this person has never heard the word nicotine. They have no idea what this plant does. But they know one rule. The only rule that kept ancient humans alive. If you find a new plant, you try it. That's it. That was survival. You taste it. You chew it. You burn it near your face and see what the smoke does. Because in a world with no medicine, no doctors, no pharmacies, plants were everything. Plants were food. Plants were treatment. Plants were the only way to change how your body felt. Historian Ian Gately, who spent years studying the origins of tobacco, said ancient humans were the ultimate botanists. They knew every plant in their territory. They knew which ones healed, which ones killed, and which ones changed the mind. And tobacco does something very specific. It delivers nicotine directly to your brain. Here's what happens in your body when nicotine enters it. Within seconds, not minutes, seconds, it crosses the blood-brain barrier, and it triggers a release of dopamine. Dopamine is the chemical your brain uses to mark something as important, as good, as worth repeating. It's the same system that makes food taste satisfying, that makes love feel like the most important thing in the world, that makes winning feel incredible. Tobacco hijacks that system directly. You feel calmer, more focused. The stress of the day softens. The cold, the hunger, the fears, it all goes quiet for a few minutes, and then it wears off, and your brain wants it again. That hunter-gatherer in Utah didn't know any of this. They just knew the plant made them feel better. That was enough. That has always been enough. But Utah wasn't the only place this was happening. Across the ocean, on a completely different continent, humans were discovering different plants. Different smokes, different ways to inhale something and feel something they couldn't feel otherwise. The most important of these was cannabis, 5,000 years ago. Pamir Mountains. Western China, archaeologists excavating a 2,500-year-old cemetery found wooden braziers, basically ancient bowls, with cannabis residue burned inside them. But here's the part that shocked them. The cannabis wasn't the weak, low THC variety that grows wild in that region. It was high potency, deliberately chosen, specifically selected for its psychoactive effects. These people weren't experimenting. They weren't confused. They knew exactly what they were doing. They understood the plant. They understood what it did. And they were using it on purpose. For something specific, not for fun. Not yet. For ritual. Here's the pattern nobody talks about. On every continent where humans discovered a plant worth smoking, the pattern is identical. It starts with a shaman. The shaman is the spiritual leader of the group. The healer. The bridge between the physical world and whatever is beyond it, and in every ancient culture, on every continent, with zero contact between them. The shaman used smoke, the Scythians, a fierce nomadic people across the Eurasian steppes around 500 BC. Their shamans were called the Kapnabatai. That name literally means those who walk on smoke. These shamans built enclosed tents. They burned cannabis flowers inside. They sat in the smoke until they lost connection with the physical world entirely, until they entered a trance so deep they couldn't feel the ground beneath them. The Greek historian Herodotus watched this happen. He wrote about it. He described the Scythians howling with pleasure inside their smoke tents, completely gone from this world. In the Americas, the Maya did the exact same thing with tobacco. Their priests smoked during ceremonies to speak with gods. The Aztec goddess Cihuacahuatl, one of their most powerful deities, had a body made entirely of tobacco. Priests wore tobacco gourds around their necks as symbols of divine power. In China, Taoist monks burned cannabis in incense burners and breathed the smoke as part of spiritual practice. In ancient Judah, what is now Israel, researchers found cannabis residue on the altars of a temple from the 8th century BC. Stop and think about this. Every major ancient civilization, every continent, no contact with each other, all of them, independently, came to the exact same conclusion. Smoke is sacred, because smoke does something nothing else can do. It rises, it disappears, it moves between the world you can touch and whatever is above it. In every ancient culture, smoke was the visible connection between humans and the divine. It carried prayers upward. It opened the mind to things ordinary consciousness couldn't reach. The smoking wasn't part of the religion, the smoking was the religion. And then, slowly, over thousands of years, something shifted. What started as sacred became social. The shaman's ritual became the village ceremony. The village ceremony became the daily habit. The daily habit became personal comfort. By the time Columbus landed in the Americas in 1492, tobacco was everywhere in the New World, every tribe, every region, from the Arctic to the tropics. Smoked, chewed, sniffed, used as medicine, used as currency, used as a gift between strangers. When Columbus arrived on San Salvador on October 12, 1492, the native Taino people came to greet him. They brought gifts. Fruit, food, spears, and dried tobacco leaves. Columbus had no idea what the leaves were. They smelled strange. They weren't edible. He threw them overboard. Big mistake. A few weeks later, two of his crew, Rodrigo de Jerez and Luis de Torres, were sent to explore Cuba. They found natives doing something they had never seen in their lives, rolling leaves into tubes, lighting one end, breathing in the smoke. They didn't even have a word for it yet. They called it drinking smoke. Rodrigo tried it. He was immediately hooked. He brought tobacco back to Spain in 1493. He smoked it in public in his hometown. His neighbors had never seen anything like it. A man with smoke pouring from his mouth and nose. There was only one explanation that made sense to them. He was possessed by the devil. The Spanish Inquisition arrested him. He spent 7 years in prison for smoking. By the time he got out, all of Spain was smoking. What happened next was one of the fastest spreads of any habit in human history. Within 100 years of Columbus's voyage, tobacco had moved from the Americas to Europe, Europe to Africa, Africa to Asia, Asia to the Pacific. By 1600, there was almost no corner of the world where tobacco hadn't arrived. Doctors called it a miracle medicine. It supposedly cured headaches, toothaches, arthritis, cancer, hunger, and fatigue. European physicians were publishing papers in 1571 claiming tobacco could cure almost any disease. It couldn't, but nicotine does reduce pain. It does suppress appetite. It does sharpen focus. Temporarily, in a world with no modern medicine, that was extraordinary. By 1600, tobacco had become currency. Colonies in the Americas used it as money, more reliable than gold. More universally accepted. It financed wars. It built economies. It shaped the borders of nations. All of this from 4 charred seeds in a prehistoric fireplace in Utah. And then comes the question nobody can answer. Why didn't it stop? Every major civilization in history tried to ban smoking. King James I of England in 1603 wrote an entire essay condemning it. He called it loathsome to the eye, hateful to the nose, harmful to the brain, dangerous to the lungs. He taxed it 4,000%. People kept smoking. In 1642, Pope Urban VIII threatened to excommunicate anyone who smoked in a church. People stepped outside and kept smoking. The Ottoman Empire banned it under penalty of death. Offenders were executed. Their pipes were driven through their noses as a warning. People kept smoking. China banned it. Russia banned it. Sweden banned it. Every single ban failed every single time. Because nicotine doesn't care about laws. Nicotine works on a part of the brain older than civilization, older than language. A part of the brain that operates on one simple question. Does this feel good? And tobacco has been answering that question with a clear yes for 12,300 years. That's why your ancestors, who knew nothing about chemistry, discovered this plant and immediately understood its value. Not because they were weak, not because they were stupid, because the plant is genuinely powerful. It delivers something reliable and repeatable in a world that offered very little of either. Calm, focus, pleasure, for a few minutes, that's all it takes. So here's what this actually means. 12,300 years ago, a hunter-gatherer in Utah found a wild tobacco plant near a fire. They tried it worked, they did it again. Across the ocean, shamans in China, in Central Asia, in the Andes, were doing the same thing with different plants. They burned cannabis, coca, and dozens of plants we've since forgotten. They called it sacred. Over thousands of years, the sacred became social. The ritual became habit. The shaman's tool became the ordinary person's comfort. Columbus arrived, his crew smoked, Europe caught fire. Within a century, a plant that had existed quietly in the Americas for 12,000 years had conquered the entire planet. And 500 years after that, knowing everything we now know about what it does to your lungs, your heart, your cells, more than 1 billion people still do it, every single day. That doesn't tell you humans are weak. It tells you how powerful a plant has to be to survive every war, every ban, every execution, every cancer diagnosis, and still spread. Some things humans discovered 12,000 years ago around a fire are strong enough to follow us all the way into the modern world, still burning.